Still troubleshooting tech difficulties over here, guys. I think Allison has a different version of Instagram than I do, and it's creating some challenges. Oh my God, you're here!
I'm here.
I'm so sorry it took so long. Sorry for all the
Hi.
difficulties. Did
Hi,
you figure
everyone.
out what was going on?
Yeah, I have no idea, honestly. I think it was just Instagram being finicky, but I'm here now. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and thank you for bearing with me while we had the technical difficulties. Hi, Jess. Hi, I see lots of familiar faces. Hi, Christina. Hi, Cassette.
Yeah, and sorry for kicking everybody off there for a minute while we were trying to figure out what the heck was going on. That was my bad. I was thinking something wasn't working, so we kind of tried to reset it. But
Oh,
anyway, I'm so excited to be here to talk about Down Comes the Night and to get to share this awesome day with you. So since we're starting a little late, if you want to go ahead and just kind of say hi, introduce yourself, your book, and I'll do the same, and then we can chat and play a fun game. And everybody out there, please feel free to use the comments to interact with us, especially during the game part. It'll be fun.
yes. Okay. Well, hi, everybody. I am Allison Saft, author of Down Comes the Night. I like to pitch it as Crimson Peak with magic. For those of you who don't know, it is about a healer who gets more than she bargains for when she takes a job to heal a patient at a crumbling estate, but it turns out he is the sworn enemy of her nation. And once they're snowed into the mansion, they have to team up to stop a sinister plot against both their nations. Yeah, like Audrey said, we're going to start with some discussion of the book. We're going to play 20 questions, bisexual fantasy edition, which I'm very excited about. If people, I think we'll explain it more, but I do have these fun bookmarks to give away to people. These were illustrated by my friend Alex, who I saw here. Hi, Alex. She is very talented. And yeah. Thank you so much for coming again. I'm so excited.
Yay! And I'm Audrey Colthurst, the author of the Fire and Star series, and also Ink Mistress, which is the book that I'll probably mostly be talking about today if I mention any of my books at all. It's kind of funny because Alice and I have frequently talked about some of the funny parallels between our books and our characters. But today's Allison's day, so let's go back to the very beginning and talk about kind of where you started writing. Allison, what's the first story you actually remember writing?
Oh God. So I started, I think I've talked about this before, but I got my start writing fan fiction and role play forums. Yes. Naruto was my fandom, embarrassingly enough. But I think the first original story I remember writing, it actually took me a while. It was my senior year of high school. I had just read Possession by A.S. Byatt and was feeling extremely literary and super cool and wanted to write something kind of inspired by it and the Melusine mythology, which is like a water spirit kind of thing. So I wrote this terrible novel about like a fairy girl who escapes into the mortal world. I don't remember anything else about it, but yeah, it was not good.
That's amazing. I was thinking like, I don't know, when I think about the first things that I wrote, it was like, back in elementary school, they would give us those projects where you could like, quote unquote, publish your own book. And like
Oh,
you had to write and like illustrate it yourself and all that stuff. And mine were like about my cats as superheroes, like trying to attack and kill the washing machine because it was evil and possessed. And like it was very ridiculous. I don't even know what I was thinking. I was never terribly literary, let's put it that way. So I don't know. It sounds like Possession was a book that really influenced you. Are there any others that have been like a really big influence on you as a reader and an author?
yeah, I think when I was a kid, I was super into the Warrior Cats series, which actually, come to think of it, maybe Warrior Cats fan fiction was my glamorous start. Those books were really heavy, surprisingly, for a series about feral cats. Beyond that, as a reader, I mean, I read a lot of manga as a kid, so manga was really influential for me. I'm sure if any of you love manga or anime, you can probably see some of that in Down Comes the Night. It very much has those power friendship type themes. Um, but then later on, I think the Scorpio races was really influential for me as well. Um, Also, more recently, in Enchantment of Ravens, Girls Made of Snow and Glass. All of those were just phenomenal, phenomenal books that like really got me excited about YA and inspired to write again.
For sure. I love Girls Made of Snow and Glass. That's probably one of my most recommended books to people who enjoy my books, for sure, and probably something I tell people who like your books to also read.
Yes,
Uh,
that one is so good. Did it? I can't remember if you recommended that one to me.
I think you made me read it. It's one of
Ah,
those things where like we can't remember which of us recommended it to the other one, but I'm pretty sure you made me read that one, and there are probably some other things I forced on you, like The Lost Garden, I think, which is one
oh
of
my
my
God.
favorite
Yes.
books that I feel like you kind of have to recommend it with the caveat that it's kind of a writer's book. Like I think especially if you're a writer or a reader, like it really pulls at both of those things and kind of will take you apart slowly until you don't even realize what's happening, and then the end just like punches you in the gut over and over. It's I love that book so much. It's one of my favorites of all time, and I've reread it many times in my life, and it continues to resonate, which I think is kind of unusual. You know, sometimes books are better as memories, if that makes
Yeah,
sense, for sure.
it does. For those of you who haven't read The Lost Garden, it is, how do you even describe it? It's like a World War II historical about a
Yeah, and the way you
woman.
describe it makes everybody just be like, "Ah!" And then you actually have to read. It's a very, very literary, sparse, poetic book about a middle-aged woman, which is hilarious because, like, I think I'm older than that character now. Who is, but it's a World War II book that doesn't take place in war. They're raising potatoes. They're growing potatoes for the war effort on a farm, and it's very much about nature and loneliness and isolation and love, and it's just a really human book, and it's just very deep and very beautiful. I love that book so much. It's by Helen Humphreys. I think it came out in 2003 or 2004, somewhere around then. um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
just
we'd love to hear
remember.
what your favorite books are. Audience out there, comment and let us know. I think the Scorpio Races was also a really important book for me. I'm a total horse girl, which I think anybody who's read my books probably knows. But that was one of those books too that can be a little bit hard to sell people on sometimes. But I feel like anybody who's read it is really passionate about it. It's just such a journey and such a horse person's book for sure.
It's so true. It's funny though, because I'm not a horse girl at all. I was definitely the wolf girl in middle school, so I feel like, cousins in a way.
Definitely cousins.
But yeah, that book is so, so good. Both that and The Lost Garden, just books that like you will just be ugly sobbing by the end of it. Yeah. Oh man.
I think
Scorpio.
part
If
of
anyone
it is
hasn't
like
read Scorpio Races, that
I
is worth
know like
reading.
it's funny because I think you and I are pretty different in a lot of ways, but I'm like the robot who always I seek out books that will make me cry because I'm like I need to feel something because I'm like super locked down and walled off, and I feel like you are more emotional than me and better at expressing it. And so but you like lean into it. You're not scared of it, whereas I'm just like I'm just going to like sob quietly by myself on reading this really intense book and then never let the world see it.
You're a
Or whatever.
secret softy, Audrey. You
I
can't fit in this
know, I
tape.
know. It's terrible. Don't tell anybody. None of you out there either. Uh, So you said you were like a wolf girl in middle school. What were you like in high school? Would you, and like, is there any advice you would take back to yourself at that time of your life?
Ooh, I feel like I was still a wolf girl in high school a little bit. But I was really, really shy. Um, I was super sensitive, like the kind of sensitive, like slightly irritated voice, just waterworks. In a lot of ways, like I think Down Comes the Night is the book I wrote for who I was at that age. The advice I would give to her is like sensitivity, while inconvenient to cry, at the drop of a pen in public is not a weakness. I believe sensitivity is like our greatest source of strength in a lot of ways. I think being attuned to our own suffering and the suffering of others and feeling things deeply is just beautiful. And I don't know what allows us to feel driven to change. I would also tell her that people really aren't that scary. Um, I think she would be horrified to know that at, approaching 30, I'm like a well-socialized golden retriever who like desperately needs, this pandemic has taught me like I really love being around people. Yeah, so someday she will get there.
Yeah, it's been a good lesson for us all, I think. Just like we can be very introverted and then get stuck indoors for a year and be like, oh, except I actually do need other humans
Yeah.
sometimes. Um, that's so funny. Like I think in high school, I don't know, I'm the person who has never been very good at settling on one thing to be good at or like devote myself to. Like I didn't always know that I wanted to be a writer and like followed that dream forever and ever. I actually quit writing for like a pretty good span of like late high school, early college, and it was I think a very negative narrative that I got in my head. I was very self-defeating, like really hard on myself, and I just kind of self-rejected, and I was like, I'm never going to be that good at this, so why bother? And just like started doing art and started doing music. I was really into painting these like large unwieldy canvases that are horrible and like collecting dust in my mom's basement. It's awful. And like, playing the flute even though I was really bad at it. And I did that until I fell out of a hayloft and screwed up my wrist and couldn't play anymore. And just like, so I've tried out like a lot of different things, and I was also shy, but I kind of like battled that by becoming both prickly and like the class clown. And so I would make people laugh as like a defense, because when you're like almost when you're performing at people, you like don't have to engage with them really. And I think it was just kind of an evil trick that I used to help myself become like fake outgoing a little bit, and
Mhm.
unfortunately served me pretty well for a while into adulthood. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I should try not to do that
Vulnerability,
so
yeah,
much.
it's hard.
But I think what you said about sensitivity is really important. And it's kind of funny because I think I was in like peak robot mode when I did the Lambda Literary Retreat with Melinda Lowe, like way back in 2013. And I still remember one of the things she said was that as a writer, your sensitivity is one of the most important things you have. And she's like, everybody tells you you have to have a thick skin to be a writer. You have to be able to take criticism and deal with terrible reviews and stuff like that. But what makes you a good writer is not necessarily that at all. Like that's what helps you survive publishing. What helps you be a good writer is that empathy and that sensitivity. And so figuring out how to like not lock off that part of myself, I think has been an adulthood challenge for me. And so I kind of envy your teenage self who was like so raw and just so there on the surface and able to feel things that way. It's pretty cool.
I love that advice. Yeah, I do feel, yeah, sensitivity is so important as a writer. Just I have nothing more deep to say than that. But it sounds like Melinda Lowe had so much good advice. She had that
She
world building
did.
that you got too, right? Like the pillars of world building.
Yep, yep, yeah. I feel like I took a lot away from that, and she's still somebody like I love her newsletter. She always has really great stuff to say, and definitely a really wonderful mentor and friend. Like somebody who is like just I don't know. I was lucky to meet her when I did, and to get all that out of studying with her. So,
Mm.
but speaking of sensitivity and sensitive heroines, I think Azra, who's the hero of my book Ink Mistress, and Ren, who's the hero of your book Down Comes the Night, they have a lot in common, and they're definitely not like your stereotypical sword wielding fantasy heroines, which gosh, I love a good swashbuckling cocky fantasy lady, as evidenced by some of my other stories. But what inspired you to write Ren, and kind of where did she come from as a character?
A couple, yeah, I think a couple reasons I chose to write her that way. The one being, I mean, a little bit like I mentioned earlier, Ren was very much like I see a lot of myself in her. Um, she is someone who craves affection. She is super sensitive. She makes decisions based on emotions. Um, so, of course, when I decided I wanted to try writing YA after dabbling in a couple like horrible literary novels that weren't going anywhere, and I was like, oh, maybe I should write something that's fun and not something I feel like I should write. I love literary fiction, by the way, just putting that out there, but I'm not cut out to do it myself.
Same.
But anyway, yeah, so when I was thinking about the kinds of themes I wanted to explore in YA, I wrote this book very much, not only for myself, but other, young people who might be feeling or have been told that, feeling things is bad. It is not bad, it is good. But beyond that, I think more on like a premise level, I'm very much the kind of person who gets ideas from romance dynamics. So when I set out to write Down Comes the Night, I had like this really simple, like pretty much one line. It's like I know I want a healer who has to cure her sworn enemy. So I figured the traditional like stab first, ask questions later was probably not going to be the best fit for that kind of narrative. Granted, Ren and Hal do have a bit of a rocky start. One of my favorite scenes in the book. And
It's a really good scene.
Oh, thank you.
Kind of violent, kind of flirty in a violent way. Like, I don't know, it works.
That's romance, baby.
Just it is.
A fine line between killing and kissing, the erotics of hatred.
You're getting so much love for Ren in the comments, by the way. Like, I see them going up the screens, and people are going to protect her with all their hearts. It's great.
Oh, thank you guys. Rocky.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. Like, Azra was a similar thing. I guess Ink Mistress actually started more with premise than character. I didn't know Azra that well when I started writing the book. And it had started as a premise. I knew I wanted to write a really crazy, like, YA road trip book that was all kicked off by some really bad decisions that my main character made. And I thought about, well, it starts out with this character who, it's kind of a love letter to the mountains too, and to nature. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, if a character lived up here in these mountainous, this mountainous area, and she's like the healer, but she's a demigod, and like nobody can really be very close to her, like what would that be like, and what kind of person would she be? And so she's very naive at the beginning of the book, and like she's really a lovely person. I mean, she's a healer, she's someone who cares for people. All she really wants is to be loved and to love people, and she wants the world to be a good place. The world is not a good place, and it continues to just kind of punch her in the face and like beat her down throughout her journey, but ultimately I think results in her becoming stronger, but also becoming stronger in her conviction that love really matters, and how people treat you matters, and I think there's another book that has a line that's like, we accept the love we think we deserve. And so it's kind of about her journey to realizing like, what love does she deserve? And I don't know, I think Ren has a very similar kind of journey, and sort of a similar semi-toxic beginning going on with Una.
I know. It genuinely cracks me up that, like, independent of us, because I hadn't read Ink Mistress at that point, but the fact that both love interests are named Hal, and the exes are Una and Ina. Like,
I know, it's really so weird. Like, what kind of weird parallel brainwaves do we have going on or something?
I don't know. Clearly we're okay. Also, by the way, I will single-handedly preach the gospel of Ink Mistress by Audrey Coulthurst. If y'all have not read this book, it is so good. I love it so much. A Fire and Stars, I feel like, is the one that gets the most love. I mean, deservedly, we love Denna and Mare. But Azra is everything to me. If you loved Ren, you will love Azra, please. Anyway, I'm going to stop fangirling at you.
Well, and if you've read Ink Mistress and not Down Comes the Night, like, this is your perfect next book to read, because I think they do have a lot of overlap in theme and characters, even though they're very, very different worlds that they're set in, I think, and kind of have a different atmosphere to them, for sure. Like, I think you do such a good job of creating atmosphere, and a lot of people have talked about that in Down Comes the Night, the kind of Gothic atmosphere, which I super envy, and like, it's never something that would occur to me to write, but you do it so beautifully. And I'm just like, oh, it's so like intense and spooky and dark and beautifully described, and it's so wonderful to just get to immerse yourself in that world.
Oh, thank you so much.
I think Ink Mistress came out in 2018. It's now 2021, although time is a flat circle and has lost all meaning. But I think actually quite a bit has changed in a positive way, I hope, anyway. One of the things that Azra and Ren have in common is their bisexuality, and the fact that they end up in relationships with men, although they both start out having feelings for or having a relationship with another woman. And when Ink Mistress was published, there was one really fun trade review that talked about how her relationship with her male love interest completely undermined the relationship that she had with her ex-girlfriend and just invalidated it. And I was like, well, that was really fun and biphobic. And so I'm really excited to see more stories like this exist, because it was very important to me in that book. Like, a lot, I caught some heat, I think, at the time for writing, a story that started out with a same-sex relationship and then ended up with a male-female pairing. But the gender of who you're with doesn't define your own identity. And I think that was a really hard thing for certain reviewers to grasp and like certain readers to grasp. So I don't know. What was your experience with that so far? Like, how has that been for you? Do you feel like it's changed or evolved a little bit, I hope?
I was gonna say, like, mercifully, I think things have changed significantly since then. Because I'm always touched by the people who reached out to me to comment on the buy rep. It makes me so happy. For the most part, I think, yeah, I mean, everyone has been appreciative, especially like you say, of the, MF pairing. I think, I mean, even since I was a teen, I feel like the discourse has generally changed. I remember, getting a lot of flack, like, oh, you'll grow out of it. And when you're in a relationship, like a long-term relationship with, it's just straight passing relationship, there's like a sense that people are like, whew, that's over. But it's
Which is
not
so
the case.
invalidating and really like
Yeah.
makes you invisible in a way that's not comfortable in a lot of cases.
Yeah. But no, I don't know if I have much insight to offer other than, like, I thank you guys so much for, I'm so happy that this aspect of the book resonates with people. It was important to me to write further love letter to my sad 15-year-old self. So this book has been so healing, not only to write, but also to share with people. So thank you.
It's kind of crazy how that happens, isn't it? Like, I've noticed that some of the books that I've written, like, they have taught me things about myself, or they've helped heal parts of my past that I wasn't sure I actually thought I could deal with. Like, I thought that chapter was closed, and then I had to dig into it, to get something out for the book. And I was like, oh, that still really hurts. Like, that's actually really
Yeah.
hard to write about. But in the end, like, then you hear from readers and them saying things like, oh my gosh, this bi rep meant so much to me. Like, I'm in a relationship with a man, but I'm bi, and like, nobody believes me. Like, but I felt so seen by this book. Like, that is a huge, huge gift, I think, to readers. And so I'm so glad both our books exist
Yes, me
to,
too.
to lead that charge and to remind people that, and as somebody else said in the comments, gender is a social construct. So at the end of the day, like, we should be able to own our own identities and not have other people tell us who we are, no matter what that looks like on the outside. So another thing that Down Comes the Night has in common a little bit more, actually, with my first book, I think, is kind of that enemies to lovers trope, which is frankly one that I'm weak for, and I will almost always read, even if it's a pairing that I'm less interested in. So do you have any like favorite or less favorite tropes as a writer or reader? And audience, we want to hear from you too. Let us know what your favorite tropes
Yes,
are.
please tell us all of the favorite tropes. Although I'm seeing, like, hearts exploding. Like, we
I
love
love
enemies to
exploding
lovers.
hearts.
Yeah, I think enemies to lovers, unsurprisingly, is my favorite. I also am very partial to a good sunshine grump pairing. That will always do it for me.
Your second book.
Yes.
I get to be all smug because I've read it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Audrey has read it. Terrifying. It's almost time for that. But this is about Duncan's Night. I'm gonna get distracted. Um, Mutual Pining is another one I love. Oh yes, Marry One Bed. That is
One bed is quality. I'm
yes.
actually definitely gonna abuse that in my next book, I think.
Yes, good. I firmly believe every book we can always fit some form of it. My critique partner Ava, who I think is here, has an only one tree scene.
Oh,
Oh, it's also very good.
that sounds awesome. I'm all about it.
How about you, besides enemies to lovers?
I mean, definitely enemies to lovers. I'm writing a book right now that's actually best friends to lovers after like some very bad misunderstandings, and it's a lot of mutual pining. Like, They
Mm,
think there's a lot of reasons that both of them think they can't be together. And if they would, you know, maybe re-examine those reasons, they might figure things out. So that one is pretty fun to write. Also, gosh, this is one of those questions where it's like you ask me a question and now like every thought that I've ever had has just like left my brain like liquid
oh,
pouring.
I understand. I don't know. I know like miscommunication gets a lot of hate, but I don't mind it. Like in that setup that you're describing with two people who I've also heard it called like idiot lovers, just like the people who are so convinced that they are not like the other person doesn't like them and they will refuse to talk about it. But especially if it's dual point of view and you can see how like totally infatuated with each other they are. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like it has to, I guess for me, it has to be plausible though. Like they have to have good reason for the misunderstandings. Like if it would all be solved by like one conversation that they're just being too stupid to have, that can sometimes get a little frustrating for me. But
Mm-hmm.
like if it's really like they have very solid reasons to like not trust each other and all that stuff, like lack of trust can be so poisonous, I think, in either making a relationship happen or in a relationship that already exists. So it's always fun
Mm-hmm.
to see how that plays.
Yes.
But yeah, so we're about halfway through our time. I think it would be really fun now to take some time to answer the audience questions. There is a separate question box at the bottom if anybody wants to use that to ask some questions. And we have one for Allison here. And if I
Ooh,
can read the whole thing, that will be a miracle because my screen is crazy pants.
I see it. It says there are some incredibly sweet yearning moments in Down Comes the Night. How do you balance writing such a gothic and tragically that's the end of what I can see. If
In
I
a
try to
dark, creepy mansion. Maybe it's contrasting that with the sweetness.
oh
Sorry,
oh
the questions get a little cut off, so if you can keep your questions on the short side, that might help us read them. Sorry, this is totally my tech ineptitude again.
and this is from Chloe. Hi Chloe, it's so good to see you. Um, let's see. So I feel like in a way the creepy haunted house is the perfect setting for sweet yearning moments in a way because it when I wrote Down Comes the Night it's I like in spite like you'll hear it described as like eerie or gruesome but also I think it's very cozy. It's very much a kind of book about two people like even though we don't really like each other we're the only people we can trust. And it's you and me against the world, even though we kind of, it's a gradual progression from we hate each other to like, I would literally die for you. But I don't know. I just really wanted to play with that dynamic of this kind of like, you know, it's snowing, there's sinister things creeping in, but really the heart of this book is about the love between these two characters and watching that kind of sweetness, tenderness, yearning unfold into yeah, unfold. Period. That's it.
That makes total sense. I think it makes a lot of sense to have kind of that menacing atmosphere as a beautiful contrast for a really intense, like emotional inner journey that your characters are on. I have to say that I super love this question. If Lowry opened a gay bar, what would he name it?
Alex, listen,
That
she
is the
threatened
best.
to ask this question, and I was like, "There's no way she's going to actually ask this question." So I did not come up with a good answer.
Oh
I'm
my
so
God.
sorry.
I mean,
Um,
I'm not good at thinking of things on the spot, but I mean, I feel like it would be called like red carpet or something really gross like that.
yeah, it's gotta be like red carpet or like the garnet or I don't know, just like something like really. I don't know. I'm like also trying to remember the names of gay bars. I lived in New Orleans for a while, and there were quite a few of them. I feel like, or maybe something like, no, no, it's gonna elude me.
Red carpet. Yeah, if you guys
Thank you
want to
for this
suggest
question,
names
Alex.
for gay bars that are like around a red theme in the comments, feel free. Then Allison will have an answer for next time somebody
Yeah,
asks.
I'll be thinking about this. Watch, keep your eyes on my stories over the next few days.
um, Here's a great question. do you have any significant, did you have any significant experiences while drafting Down Comes the Night that you'd like to share with aspiring writers? I think that's a good question because it kind of gets to like what was important, what was hard, like what did you learn from doing it? Was there anything that you took away from, especially from doing your debut novel, that might help out somebody who's kind of at an earlier stage of that journey?
Yeah, sure thing. So I alluded to it a bit earlier, and I did see a comment. Fair point, Christina. I would consider Down Comes the Night literary fantasy, but I was writing like a way too autobiographical, um, contemporary, um, and I was beating my head against the wall trying to write this book for probably the better part of 2 years. And by the time I finished it, I read it through and I didn't even bother revising this thing because I was like, this is dead on arrival. I was so convinced that I needed to write this book that I had fallen out of love with probably a year ago, especially after. Okay, here's a side tip. I posted the first chapter of this story to a little writing forum that I shall not name, but who are renowned for being super mean.
I know who they are.
Yes, you do. And they tore into this story and destroyed it. So
Oh,
my
no.
first little piece of advice is don't take feedback from people whose opinions you don't trust. Um, there are a billion ways to write a book. None of them is necessarily right or wrong, but when you're getting feedback from people, I think it's so important to work with people who understand your vision, what you're trying to do, and who can kind of guide you in that direction to help you enhance the things that you want to bring out. To get back on my original track, the long and short of it is like always write the book of your heart. I've always found my best work comes from being super self-indulgent, and just kind of, especially for a first draft, just get it all out there. Write all of the tropes, write all of the scenes where no plot happens and it's all just like making eyes at each other. The plot will come later, I always say. Jenny, if you're listening, don't worry about it. I think my agents are here too. Hi, guys.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
That's, I think you've touched on it now a couple times that the sort of that idea of writing what you want to read, not what you think you're supposed to write. And I think I found that stumbling block too earlier in my career where like my very first, I started before I thought I was ever going to be a published author. I started out just doing NaNoWriMo and it was just for fun. And I would write a book every November and then throw it in a drawer, which then you realize is a really weird habit for somebody who's not a writer. And so my first book though, I was like, I must write a literary novel. And it was so boring and it was self-indulgent and it was terrible. And I never revised it, but I learned so much from that too. Just being like, why am I writing something I don't even like? Like, what do I like to read? Like, I like to read romance. I like to read fantasy. I like to read about magic and music and horse girls. I'm like, why not write what you love? And there's, I think, something about digging into that combination of like tropes and concepts and just like bits of atmosphere and things that you love that's going to make you produce an amazing book that's unique that only you could write. And so
Absolutely.
lean
And that
into
always
it.
comes through. Passion always comes through, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's interesting to see how that evolves too, like as you go from book to book. Each book is different to write. And so you kind of learn something from each one, but they're all in some way, I think, books of your heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see, what other questions do we have? Um, there was one I saw.
Yeah,
Oh
you're
my gosh.
also welcome to just throw them in the comments. I think I get them in real time. I'm not sure if there's a
Yeah,
separate.
you do. It's just hard because the comments go fast, but I might just also be really old and slow. Somebody asked what your next book was about. I think it might be one of
Oh,
your agents.
oh, could it be? So my next book, my whole publishing team is here. Oh, there. Yes, hi, Jess. My next book is about, gosh, I still haven't mastered the pitch for this one. I describe it as Full Metal Alchemist meets the Scorpio Races. Shout out to Scorpio Races that we were talking about earlier. It is about a aspiring alchemist and a very lonely, unparented goblin girl who must team up to win a magical fox hunt. And that is like the one sentence pitch for you.
And it's definitely that sunshine grump dynamic, which is so much fun to read and really, really satisfying.
Mm.
um, let's see. Ava's
Um,
asking, does Hal have an Irish accent? Yes, no, that people want to know.
I don't know why. It has been a running joke that for some reason Hal just has an Irish accent. I think probably more realistically, my first critique partner, Alex. Hi, Alex. I'm shouting you out again. Reminder, she did this bookmark. She's so talented. She's also a writer. I love you. She actually donated the name Vesria to me from one of her very first books, I think. I'm sorry if I'm getting the details wrong, but I believe Vesria, which is the nation Hal is from, was based off Wales. So I think canonically Hal probably has a Welsh accent, but Irish is also very delightful. Whatever, all of them, I think Lowry has a Scottish accent. I haven't listened to the audiobook all the way through, but I'm very excited because Saskia Myleveld is the narrator and does fantastic accents, so I'm sure they are all just wonderful. I'm very excited.
She's such a good narrator. I actually like want to buy the audiobook just so I can listen to that version of it as well.
Yes, me too, actually.
Do you want to pick another question? I feel like I'm kind of running the show down here, but you might have one that you're really excited to answer.
Oh, sure. What happens if I click this Q&A box?
Yeah, just click the little question box and it'll show you all the questions.
Oh, wow. You can also pick them because I think I'm actually more technically enough than you at this point.
That's really sad because I'm like twice your age.
Oh, please.
I mean, I can't quite be your mom. That would
No,
be creepy.
quite. I think I saw one question. Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I'd say, but which character was the hardest to write? And were there any that didn't exist until later drafts? I kind of grabbed that one because I know for my books, they're frequently, it's more common that characters get cut from my books because I tend to have too many and too much going on, but I don't know if that's the same for you.
Yes. The early drafts of Down Comes the Night had so many random extra characters. There were a lot more people in the house. So that, yeah, a lot of them got cut. Hannah used to have a girlfriend. I'm sorry, Hannah, she's gone now. But other than that, the hardest character to write was, I think, Hal. He is, I mean, probably not so secretly my favorite character. I'm sorry, Ren. But he's a very taciturn type. And so while he was this fully realized character in my head, those very early drafts, he wasn't coming through as well as he could. He basically, I don't even know, it would be hilarious actually to go back to the first draft of Down Comes the Night and see how much dialogue this man actually had, because it would probably be like 5 lines. He didn't want to talk. So in revision, it was a lot of kind of bringing him more onto the page, and that was challenging. Ren and Una's relationship was also challenging to get right. That also took some revision.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you want to grab a couple more questions, or should we hop over and play our game and see if people can outsmart us?
Ooh, yes, we can do that. I think I saw, yeah, and I guess y'all can keep asking questions if you would like, if you want to put them in the box, and then when we finish, I could stick around and answer a couple more. Because I think the only other question I saw, which was something about Isabel's dresses. Where did I get?
Oh yeah, there's a great one
dresses?
about. Well, there are a couple, I think. There's how is Isabel's wardrobe the greatest ever? And I think somebody asked like where you got the inspiration for her dresses.
I actually don't know. I wasn't a big Pinterest user until much later in my, like, within the past 2 years probably. I think I just wrote some really extra dresses, and then I think somebody told me she gave off really like Miss Havisham vibe from some Charles Dickens novel. Is it? Which one? We shall never know. I'm embarrassing myself. They'll revoke my master's. I'm so sorry. But yeah,
I studied music, so nobody can judge me.
Yeah. So I don't think there was an inspiration for them. I think probably like when I was revising, I did go on Pinterest and probably, stole some visual cues from those. But
Great expectations, says the
Thank
comment
you.
section. Thank you, commenters.
Yes. Okay, cool.
All right.
I can't see any other questions, so I think Audrey will have to curate them for me. But in the meantime, we can definitely play.
Okay, and I think I have a couple copies of Ink Mistress to give away, which if you are a winner, please make sure to send a DM either to Allison or to me, except if you're DMing me, it needs to be on my actual Instagram account, which is Brashbook. You can probably find me. There's also links to my Instagram on my website, and I can make sure it gets to you if you win. So basically the game is 20 questions, which Allison and I talked about this, and we were like, well, we could do trivia, except I'm like, oh my God, I'm really bad at trivia, and I just like forget everything I ever knew the minute someone asks me a question. So we thought this might be a fun game because you guys can also participate. So basically the goal is one of us is going to have a piece of bisexual representation heavy media in mind. Could be a TV or movie, could be a book, could be a game. And then the other person is going to ask questions and try to guess what that piece of media is. But if you beat us to it in the comments, you win a prize. Thank you, Books and Books, for posting a link to my profile for winners of Ink Mistress. So with that in mind, Allison, you're the star. Do you want to ask questions first or go first?
Oh, there's my plant. I don't
There's
know
your
why
plant.
that happened.
You're just, I thought maybe you were just going to run away.
Behind the scenes. Sorry, I distracted myself for a second there. Would you like me to choose the first?
Sure, if you want to torture me first, that seems fair.
Yes, I would love to torture you first.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, and we get to ask like book, game, or TV movie first, right? And then it's all yes or no questions. Yeah, okay, so book, game, or TV / movie?
This one is a book.
Okay, a book. Let's see. Is it a romance?
No.
Does it, let's see. Is it really violent?
No.
Is it a contemporary fantasy?
It is high fantasy.
Oh, it's in high fantasy.
Or a second world fantasy. I don't know. I guess some people say high fantasy and they think like Game of Thrones, but
okay, we'll just pretend that I said secondary world fantasy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Are there dragons?
There are not dragons.
There
are other mythical creatures.
You're being so nice to me. You're like giving me clues.
I figured I'd softball you with the first one here.
Thanks.
And I should say, to amend my earlier answer, it does have a minor romantic. It does have a strong romantic subplot, but it is not what I would consider a romance.
Okay. Does the main character have magic powers?
Yes.
Let's see. Has the author ever written any other books that are also about either bisexual women or lesbian women? Women who like women. Sapphic books.
Yes. She has one other Sapphic book.
Okay. Is it Girl Serpent Thorn?
Yes, it is.
Yes! Did anybody beat me?
I don't know. I'm not seeing the comments updating.
Did everybody just leave?
They might have just left. I see they're just watching us suffer.
Okay. That's fine too. You guys can just watch
them? I still have Ava's question up, and then the most
recent. Oh, I just killed that. So that should be gone. Oh, there they come. I see comments now. Somebody also asked if the giveaways were international. I'm happy to ship my books internationally.
Yeah, and mine are just flat postage, so I'm happy to do that too.
Okay. Everybody's like, it's so tense. I'm like, I felt tense. Like, I'm pretty sure I just made a diamond in my butt. Anyway, this is the part where Books and Books regrets letting us record this. Anyway, okay. So your turn. I get to torture you now.
Oh God. Okay.
Let's see. This one is going to be either TV show or movie.
Oh no.
I hate you.
Okay, is it a TV show or is it a movie?
You have to ask yes or no questions.
I thought I was allowed to ask. Oh man, okay. Is it sci-fi or fantasy?
That's not a yes or no question. I'm being
Y'all.
such a jerk right now. I love you, I promise. I'll tell you. It's I would
Sorry, is
say
it
it's
fantasy?
I mean, I feel like it has some elements of both.
Okay. Um, is it animated?
Yes.
Is it does it have a female protagonist?
Yes.
Does it take place in the city?
Not really.
Is it She-Ra?
Yes. Shira and the Princesses of Power.
Yay. Okay, that wasn't so bad besides me completely confusing what a yes or no question is.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to remember. It's hard to keep straight.
It
I
can be.
understand. All right, your turn to torture me.
Okay. Um, okay, I got it.
And yes, guess in the
Sorry.
comments. I think some people like were not sure that they were supposed to be guessing in the comments, but we can also go back and check the comments to see if anybody actually beat us and we missed it, or just repeatedly like smack us over the head if we didn't see your comments.
Yeah, just you can also this is also like you know, that's not very strict, so you know, we're not going to be like strong. If you feel like you won, just send me a message and I will send you a bookmark.
Totally. We trust you.
Okay, so yes, I have my thing in mind.
Okay. Is it TV or movie, book or game?
This is a book again.
A book. Okay. Is it science fiction?
No.
Is it secondary world fantasy?
No.
Ooh. Is it contemporary fantasy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, contemporary fantasy book. Does the main character have magical abilities?
I don't think so. There are several narrators though.
So, okay, so is it a multi-point of view novel?
Yes.
Okay. Does it have like a secondary genre to it that it could be categorized into something else as well?
Yes, I would say so.
Has it ever been adapted into a movie or a TV show?
It is not.
Has not. Are there dragons? I'm just
There are
kidding.
no dragons.
Yeah. Is there a murder mystery as part of the plot?
Is the kinda. It's been a minute since I've read this one. Maybe I shouldn't choose this one. I don't think people definitely die.
People die. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it like paranormal?
Yes.
Okay. Is it Sawkill Girls?
It is. Yes.
Woo! We got a lot of really good guesses.
I still sadly can't see any of the comments coming in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can see them as they roll by, but then they go away and I'm not as fast as they are. But you know, I'm not as fast as anybody these days. All right. Well, it's pretty close to 5. Do we want to play one more round or do we want to shift over to let you answer some more questions?
We could do maybe one more round and then some more questions and then we can
Okay, sounds good. All right, I've got one picked for you. It's a book.
Okay. Is it contemporary fantasy?
No.
Okay. Does it feature any magical creatures?
Ooh. I don't think so, but I honestly don't remember.
Uh-oh.
I don't think so. That's not like that doesn't tie in with what genre I think it would be. So
Okay.
Well, there are some magical creatures in related books, which is maybe too much of a gimme, but
Okay. Is it multi-point of view?
Yes.
Okay. Is it, oh God, does this also have like a secondary genre?
Yes, it does, for sure.
Okay. Um, is this secondary genre perchance a heist?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Could it be Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo?
That is correct.
Yay. Okay. We did it. We didn't forget all of the books we've ever read.
It's a freaking miracle.
Uh, Yay.
We got some winners, I think, too.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, and you guys feel free to scroll the comments. Now you know, based on people's guesses, some other really awesome books that have bi protagonists in them. So it's just like your TBR piling up right there. So do you want to switch over then to back to questions to
Yeah, we
round
can
it
do a few
out?
more and then wrap it up.
I kind of love this question from the person with the handle Catbake. What would your dream adaptation be? Graphic novel, musical, or TV series?
Hi, Kat. I think my dream adaptation would definitely be a graphic novel. However, if Guillermo del Toro uh, is in the market for like a short series or something like that, like my agent's information is on my website.
That'd be awesome. I was kind of hoping that you were going to say musical because it would have just like made my head completely explode and I would have been like, I have never known you. I don't know who you are. It would have been.
I do love musicals. Did you not know this about me?
I don't think I did. No, I don't think
Oh yeah,
we've ever
yeah.
talked about that.
I do love musicals. I wouldn't say I'm like I did musical theater in high school, but my knowledge is not especially encyclopedic. So I just have like my select few that I love.
That makes sense. Fun fact, so we had auditions for the school musicals every fall, like the same week. I got extremely sick every year that week, every time. Choir was my deal. I was like that kind of nerd. I was not actually cool enough to be in musical theater. So, and I was always sick for auditions, which is probably for the best, honestly, in the long term. Um, Alex asks if Hal is a character on Gilmore Girls, who would he hang out with? I feel like that's a deep cut that's like very specific to you.
I haven't watched Gilmore Girls.
You haven't?
No.
Even I've watched Gilmore Girls, or at least most of it. I don't think I've watched some of the later seasons necessarily.
I know my roommates used to watch it. There is someone named Rory, perhaps.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I'm actually kind of surprised that you haven't watched that show.
I know my sins are being laid bare. If anyone has any suggestions for this question, just please
I feel like he
know.
would probably hang out with Luke because Luke is like equally surly and grumpy, and they would just like sit there quietly, like grouching at each other and like sipping coffee, wearing flannel.
I like that actually. That tracks.
Yeah, but they would never talk about their manly friendship. It would just be like, you know, they'd have each other's backs, and it would be like an unspoken rule.
Of course.
Somebody asked who is your favorite villain of all time? Actually, Kia asked that. Hi, Kia.
Hi, Kia. My favorite villain of all time. Ooh, that's such a hard question. I love villains so much. If you'll accept a sort of villain to anti-hero arc, I would say Scar from Full Metal Alchemist. He makes me so emotional. But there are lots of great villains in that show. Wrath, also, Pride. All of the homunculi are fantastic, interesting, complex villains that grapple with what is humanity. Other than that, Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Love her. Ooh, I could just go on probably, but I would say those are some top tier.
That makes total sense. I feel like the thing that a lot of people, when you're writing villains especially, it's like the villain is always the hero of his or her own story or their own story. So it's really fun to explore what a villain really is thinking and why they're acting the way they do. And that's where those really satisfying arcs, I think, sometimes come from. And you got to give respect to a show or a series or anything that can have multiple villains and do them all really well with different motives and different reasons for doing what they do.
Oh, I would also shout out Beyond the Ruby Veil by Mara Fitzgerald. the protagonist is a villain, she is so delightful because she is just very selfish and committed to her chosen course and does not care who stands in her way. So if you're a villain protagonist person, please check out this book. It is so good. It's so funny. I read it in like 4 hours. So yeah. Oh.
I think I can't say a whole lot without spoiling the book, but if you like sapphic books, also be sure to check out. And if you like reading about villains, be sure to read The Midnight Lie, that book.
I haven't read that yet. I still need to.
Oh man, I can't believe you haven't read that. Please
I
read it.
know. I'm
It's not like you
behind.
haven't been busy or something like lately getting
Yeah.
to your book. I mean, totally fine. Um, so this one's fun. What is your favorite thing about the Gothic genre?
Oh no, you've chosen the question that will make me just talk for 45 minutes. If I had to be really succinct about it, um, and somewhat tongue in cheek, the Gothic is just such a high emotion genre, especially classic Gothics. Like I saw a graph a couple weeks ago that was listing out like the amounts of times heroines swooned or the villain's eyes burned like the gates of hell. It's like you can't really tell what anybody looks like in Victorian novels because they're all just described with these really like uh, I don't know, it's sort of their traits are so vague, but just give you an impression of their soul. But anyway, yeah, I mean the Gothic is just like Castle of Otranto. A giant helmet falls out of the sky and crushes somebody. The Gothic, it's ridiculous. I love it so much. It's so much fun. There's so much to play with, so many cool motifs to arrange. Um, yeah, it's good stuff.
Lots of inspiration to draw from, and so many interesting books that do crazy things like have helmets fall from the sky.
Yeah, I mean, I hate it when my ancestral family curse is just that whenever I get engaged to someone, they're just tragically crushed by some suit of armor. Very, very
Totally
relatable.
makes sense. Um, Another question is craft wise, how did you balance Hal's threatening reputation with his compelling vulnerability?
Oh, thank you. That's a good question. Again, speaking to my uh, anime and manga roots, unfortunately, my character type is remorseful mass murderer. See also Uchiha Itachi, Kenshin Himura, Roy Mustang.
Xena Warrior Princess.
Hey,
I'm
still,
old.
I regretfully need to see that too. But I don't know, like those characters are all so much about seeking forgiveness and redemption. And I don't know, there's something really beautiful about those narratives that presents characters who have done horrible things as like it's never too late in a way. Um, these I don't know. I'm always just really gravitated. Like I've always gravitated to these kinds of characters who are desperately trying to do better. Um, that I realize that doesn't entirely answer the question. I mean, the other component of it is like I love like YA loves our monster boys, and Hal is in a way kind of a play on that trope. I wanted him to be extremely non-threatening in a way. Like he doesn't. I mean, this isn't really a spoiler necessarily, but he's very sick, so he does not really pose much of a threat to Ren at any point. He's just very tired. Uh,
Tired
so
from all the murdering.
yeah, it really takes a lot out of you.
Makes sense. Um, Speaking of your characters, we have a very excited question about when do we get an Una spinoff?
Oh, I think I might know who asked this.
Yeah, I'm sure
I
you do.
actually have gotten quite a few requests for Una spinoffs, which makes me very happy. I love Una. Um, the answer is I don't know. I see Down Comes the Night as a standalone. Never say never. Maybe someday I would be open to writing it. I think it would be really fun. Una's yeah, she was one of my favorite characters to write. She's just very straightforward. So
Very direct and
yeah,
gonna stick to her plan.
yes, for sure. So maybe someday. It would be fun, but definitely not in the near future, I would say.
So this is a very feelingsy question, which I think hang on, I can only see it when I have the question box open, but this kind of goes back to what you were talking about vulnerability and sensitivity. So Ren really starts out as thinking that compassion is a weakness, and by the end she accepts it as a strength. And was that a conscious evolution for you as you were writing? Like can you talk about that arc a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I think that was the arc I had envisioned for her from the beginning. I mean, when I set out to write books, I tend to start with character. Usually I will give them, I got this framework from K.M. Weiland, and if you're an aspiring writer or a writer, honestly, if you write, you're a writer, period. That's how it works. So if you write, you can check out K.M. Weiland's blog. She has a fantastic series on writing character arcs and plot, and the way she conceptualizes characters is they always have some sort of fundamental lie they misbelieve or they believe about themselves or about the world. And for Ren, that was very much, emotions and compassion are a weakness, something that's kind of been affirmed not only by the people around her, the people she loves, but also by this war-torn world they live in. And so, yeah, it was important to me to show in a way that is a universal truth that, like I was saying earlier, that compassion and feelings are our greatest source of strength. Ren is not strong like a lot of the other characters in the book, but it's because of her sensitivity, her willingness to forgive, her willingness to feel empathy, to change, to challenge her misconceptions and challenge authority too. I guess it's a secondary character arc of hers. Yeah, that allows the plot to end up the way it does. I guess it's not a spoiler to say that I will hurt you, but I think that the ending is very gentle. So I hope that answers the question.
I think it's a really fun arc to write and something that I don't know, we need more of. I think more characters like that for sure. Do you have a favorite non-spoilery scene or quote from Down Comes the Night?
Ooh, I think my favorite scene is Ren and Hal's first meeting scene. Um, Otherwise, it's funny when I was signing books the other day, the most common request I got in personalization was my favorite quote. And it's not a very splashy one, but one of my favorite lines in the book is a line of dialogue of Hal's, and it's just a terrible fate indeed to be your prisoner, which I feel like when you get to the scene where he says that in, it will have some emotional payoff.
That sounds pretty loaded, even just like without any context,
Oh,
honestly,
thank you.
I think. All right, let's see. We still have a few more questions. Let's see. Were you involved at all in the cover process? Because it's amazing.
I was, yes. Wednesday Books has been phenomenal in asking my input on like pretty much every single part of the process. I sent a mood board and just like a long rambling email to my editor of what I'd hoped for. We went through a few iterations of the cover before landing on this one, which, I won't be biased, but I think it's very beautiful. I'm very happy with where we landed with this. But yeah, the short answer is yes, I was involved. An author typically doesn't have, I dictate and like I want this exact cover, but definitely they were, interested in getting my thoughts and input. So.
Awesome. I've made a huge mistake and clicked something that I can't get out of now.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh. It's like I opened the comment box and now it won't let me get out. And okay, there we go. Oh my gosh, I saved myself. It's so embarrassing. It's like watching your grandma try to figure out how to use email. Um, anyway, okay. Was there any particular moment of composing this novel that was particularly difficult for you?
Um, yes, many. I think my partner might be in the audience here. Hello. I think he can attest to there were many moments. I have this distinct memory of we were living in Austin at the time. We were getting pizza. We were standing outside eating our pizza, and I just like started crying about this book because I could not figure it out. And this was before I had signed with my agents or gotten a book deal. It was when I was revising with Christine Lynn Herman, who was my mentor in Author Mentor Match. And the early external plot of Don't Come Tonight was a mess, mostly hammering out the mystery elements. So there were some lows. If you are a writer or are close with a writer, you may have found yourself or your loved ones face down on the floor. That was me many, many times throughout the process. So if you're feeling that way, it's very normal. It usually passes. I'm in that phase right now, but it, you know, we've all been there. We all get through it.
I think it's like writing books and getting past those points is, I always think of like probably the best thing that I ever learned in therapy, which is that feelings will pass. And like you have to trust that they will pass, even though they're horrible sometimes when you're in the middle of them and like lying face down on the floor. I think I lay face down on the floor for a lot of Ink Mistress. It was a tough time in my life. I was working a really demanding job and, you know, trying to write when I got home from work and was tired all the time. And I overwrote that book by, I want to say, probably about 50,000 words. And
Oof.
have a massive cutscenes document from that book. Like there were so many more stops on their road trip back in the day. Like if there were, yeah, if anybody ever wanted deleted scenes from that book, there are many. And it was pretty painful to have to go through the creating and deleting process over and over and over. But I think it's that whole like, the feeling will pass. This part of the book will pass. You will get through it. It sucks, but it happens.
Yeah.
Let's see. More questions. Ooh, a fun question from Katie Stout. What's the spookiest element of Lowry's mansion?
Katie, hi, first of all. The chiding tone was slightly like, is this spoilery? I don't, I mean, the scariest thing about Call What Call is definitely a spoiler. But in vague terms, I could say there's a crumbling, forbidden passageway that no one must enter. It is strictly forbidden. And Lowry says it's because they're doing some renovations, which we should definitely believe. So,
if you asked me that question, I probably would have said the same thing. Like when you first get to Colwick, that's definitely the thing that seems like really creepy.
And yeah, like, yeah, like don't worry about that over there. We're just, just patching things up.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
So someone asked, what's your typical writing routine? Do you listen to music as you write?
I do not listen to music, at least with lyrics, because I would just think about the lyrics. I don't think there is a super typical writing routine for me. When I'm actively drafting, I'll try to get 1,000 words a day. And I try to be nice to myself, and if I get to the 1,000 words, I'll stop. Other than that, there's no real routine. Every book tends to want to be written a different way. Down Comes the Night, I can say this now because neither Audrey or I are employed there anymore. I would write a lot at work. Down Comes the Night.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No. Audrey and I used to work together. Audrey was my boss, for those of you who didn't know.
So crazy.
But anyway, the second book, whose title has not been announced yet, really wanted to be written in bed. Just only at nighttime in bed by glow of salt lamp. It was a very gosh, so dramatic with your requirements. But yeah, it was a very vulnerable book, so I just needed to feel cozy, um, which sounds very precious. But yeah, and in the current book I'm writing, there's no routine because it's only despair. It will get written, but I've been trying to do it in the mornings. I've stopped the past couple of weeks just with debut craziness, but hopefully get back to it soon.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of on the morning train too these days, trying to get up and write before work. I've realized that especially during the pandemic, it's like by the end of the day, with how crazy the news cycle had been the last couple of years and how much work was draining me and the pandemic was draining me, like I have no energy at night anymore, which is when I used to do my writing. And but apparently now it's getting lighter outside. I'm having a harder time writing in the mornings. So apparently my current book wants to be written at ass o'clock in the morning and only to the soundtrack of Enya. There was only Enya.
That's right.
Yesterday, today, and tomorrow there was only Enya, which is hilarious because Enya is one of those like really embarrassing things that I loved during high school that I still love, and is like extra embarrassing because I was a music major in college. So there's just like a lot of layers of embarrassment there. But at this point, I'm like, who cares? I love Enya. I'm not going to be shy about it. It's fine. Yeah. And if the book wants to be written to Enya, who am I to tell it no?
Yeah, exactly. You must give in to books' demands. It is your God now.
It's true.
So, yeah.
All right. So let's pick one more, and then I think we probably should wrap it up.
Yes.
Do you want to pick the last question, or you want me to pick?
My interface is still frozen.
Oh no. We have questions about editing and questions about Ren and Hal's favorite books, whether you describe Hal as a simp in your own words.
Oh boy. Yes. Let's do the editing question.
Okay. Editing question. Let me find it. Oh yeah. Do you have, this one's from Kia. Do you have any advice about the editing process?
Ooh, that's a good question. Do I have any advice? I think kind of echoing what I said much earlier in the talk, like taking feedback from people you trust. Honestly, once you get feedback, I just make a big document and pour all of either my editor, my agents, my critique partners' feedback into it. I kind of organize it by topic. So, you know, if it's a comment about the characters or the plot, it kind of helps me, you know, get a handle on it if I can break it into specific categories. Then typically what I'll do is like make myself a little to-do list, starting with the biggest picture things and then working small. Just because for me, if you have to rewrite a large section, tinkering with the prose is very tempting, but you must not do it until you kind of deal with all of the big picture stuff first. So yeah, I guess I would say like take notes, let yourself feel your feelings. Revision can be very vulnerable and scary and hurtful sometimes, especially if you're not used to getting feedback from others. Getting my first edit letter in Author Mentor Match was 10 pages, which was a shock to the system. But it was a trial by fire, and no other edit letter has ever scared me since. So, I think, and then I typically revise in order. Some people do it by, starting at the end or like going through a bunch of times to address individual problems. Like, oh, I'm going to do the plot pass, and then I'm going to do the character pass. But I just like to do everything in one go.
I think I'm more that latter kind of person who has to do separate passes for things because my brain just won't hold everything at once.
That's super fair. Yeah.
I wish I was better at that, honestly. But I think your point about like letting the feedback sit is really crucial, because my knee-jerk response to any kind of criticism is surprisingly not to like melt into a pool of tears, but instead to be like, oh, they must be right about everything. Like I'm doing everything wrong, and like I need to immediately fix it. But like that like immediate jump to fix everything isn't always the right move. Like you really like just sitting with your feedback for a couple days and letting it sink in, and then thinking about like, well, how do I really want to solve this problem to serve the story I'm trying to tell? And that like helps you actually revise in a way that feels organic to the story and really resonates with you, and isn't just like trying to check things off a list, if that makes sense. Like making a list of your own is different than like going off a list somebody else made for you is kind of what I'm
Absolutely.
getting
Yeah.
at there. Like your process makes so much sense too, but that gap between like receiving and acting is so important, because I know for me, I'm just like, oh my god, problems everywhere. I have a total engineer brain, not a creative brain at all, and so I panic when there are lots and lots of problems and feel like the other person must be right and they all have to be solved immediately, tomorrow,
Of
now.
course.
It's so unhealthy. So that's something I definitely learned and got better at over the course of four books. I don't even know how many books are written anymore. It's a terrible, heinous blur the last several
Soon
years.
to be 5.
I know, yeah, so crazy. So let's see. Yep, I think that's most of the essential questions. We do have a question about what would Ren and Hal's favorite books be, if you have anything.
Oh, man, you're asking the hard questions.
I know, like, I'm so bad at that kind of question. It's like, that's one of those, like, immediately my brain just, like, dumps everything it ever knew kind of questions.
I mean, canonically, Hal just reads a lot of, like, dense history, military strategy, philosophy kind of stuff, and Ren just, like, reads medical textbooks for fun, like a freak. I'm trying to, I should come up with, like, an actual good, like, oh, what YA books would they like? I might take I'll take a rain check on that one, whoever you are. I am thinking about this. I'll put it on my stories, or if you DM me, I will respond.
Yeah, that'd be a really fun,
Yeah.
fun Instagram story, actually, to do something like that.
Yeah. Awesome.
I think that's about it. It's been so fun hanging out with you, Allison, and
Yes, thank you. And thank you everybody for coming.
please message us if you beat us to the punch on our guessing game, because it was hard to keep track of all the flying comments, so we want to make sure that you get prizes. But yeah, any last words of wisdom before we head on out?
My final thoughts are please support indie bookstores. Books and Books, thank you so much for having us. If you pre-order from Down Comes the Night, if I can speak, if you pre-order Down Comes the Night from Books and Books, the link is in their bio. You can get signed book plates, and I have them. Oh yeah, there's a very limited number of these character cards, so while supplies last. So please do that. Indie bookstores are fantastic. They have championed Down Comes the Night. Thank y'all so much.
For sure. And my local indie is Powell's. If you want any of my books, please order from Powell's. And if you want a signed copy, though, you might need to coordinate with me, but feel free to DM me to do that. I'm always happy to get books signed for anyone who wants to order them through Powell's.
Awesome. Well, I guess that's it. Yeah, my final thoughts are thank y'all so much. It means the world that people are excited about this book, so thank you.
Happy reading, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye.